Welcome to another episode of Inquiring Minds. I am Steve Harper, and with me is Donna Carlin. How are you doing, Donna?
I'm great, thanks. And yourself?
I am fantastic. I love those glasses.
Thank you very much.
They're,
So, are you ready? These
I'm
are my
ready.
studious glasses, my horn-rimmed glasses. So, I'm trying to be in studious form.
Oh, uh-oh.
Um, yeah.
I am
So,
not, clearly.
you're always go with the choice that scares you the most
Oh, boy.
because that's the one that's going to help you grow. I read that this morning. I'm going, yep, absolutely right. Intellectually, I agree with that 100%. Now, in action, how many people actually go for the most difficult decision and do they kick themselves afterwards? I'd love to hear your opinion on this.
Well, it's interesting because when you think about the difficult decisions that you encounter in life or in business, I personally find myself in, when I go through a postmortem often, and I do this, with regularity, I don't realize they're such important, important questions to be asking at the time. I've actually decided that I really, and I've said it before, but I need a little desk version of Donna Carlin, the Donna Carlin, superhero doll on my desk. When these things come up, these situations occur, I need to be able to push the button and have the sage advice just flow freely from it, because I often don't realize the magnitude sometimes in these situations, and I really should. I should probably be asking a lot better questions like we talk about here on these episodes. I should have those at the ready. But when I find myself sort of spiraling a little bit, these kinds of, that's the important time when you got to stop yourself and you got to look at what's going on, and you really have to have to pay attention to the process that's sort of unfolding, and it can be really difficult for me. I guess I'd throw it back on you. Do you have a particular situation or sort of significant event, personally or professionally, that kind of popped up that uh, really kind of comes front and center when you think about this particular topic?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I could share a story about Michael, which, I've done many times. He's a great guinea pig, my son. So it works. Um, the he's always head hunted, which is a great place to be. People
Sure.
want him for their organizations. And I get a phone call one day, and he said to me, "I'm being headhunted for three separate positions, and they're really intriguing. And I've rated them like first, second, and third choice. I would love to discuss them with you to figure out, what you think is best." And keep in mind, what I do for a living. I did his core values index, which is like an in-depth,
Yeah.
debrief with him. So he knew how he was hardwired, what his default operating system is, and all that kind of stuff. And I asked him to describe the three jobs and why they were first, second, and third. So he told me what the first one was, which was a variation on the work that he was currently doing. The second one was a little bit of a deviation from what he was used to. And the third one, he had no experience in whatsoever because it was the technological world. And he's a policy person. So he's not a techie. He uses technology, but he's not a techie. And this would be for the office of the CIO. So for the entire government. So, it was very high visibility, small team. That part he liked. But the thing was, I think the job description actually at the time was fascinating. It was to write the policy around ethics and everything else
Hmm.
for bringing in artificial intelligence. And look where we are now.
Yeah.
So, think about that. That's very high profile, very high visibility. But he knew nothing. Like he knew about AI, but he didn't know anything about the workings of the office of the CIO and technology. So that was his third choice. That was my first choice. So I said to him, "Your third choice is my first choice." And he looked at me and he said, "Why?" "I don't know anything about tech. I would be the only person who's not got a tech background in, this arena, and it's scary when you go in without that knowledge base, especially for somebody like him who reads voraciously and always is learning new stuff continuously. He loves that. And I said, that's because you're going to bring a perspective to the office that they don't have because you're not one of them. And you're going to bring
Yeah.
multiple perspectives to writing that policy, not just from a tech perspective. Number one. Number two, you're going to learn so much. It's going to energize you to no end. That's why. And it scares people when they're about to embark, especially for their job, where they're making their living. If they don't fit, then what, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And he took that job, and he was having more fun, more energy than he had in a long, long time, and wrote a phenomenal policy. So, that's a conversation that we have fairly often. What are you least leaning towards? And what if you flip that and said, what could draw me to this? And that's a question we often don't ask, ourselves. What is standing in the way of us jumping into the deep end of this? If it's fear, what is that masking? That is the critical conversation. So, I'm almost finished my book, by the way. You will have something to put on your desk to ask those critical questions.
Awesome.
It's all your fault that I'm writing it. So, if you look at that, ask yourself, okay, if I'm running away from this, what could I benefit by in running towards it instead?
Yeah.
And how
Yeah.
much are you going to learn?
Yeah. I think that we run from things that scare us, right? And the
Yeah.
fear controls a lot of what we do in all aspects of our life, but especially in work, in business. You know, when people are sort of um, holding themselves in a position that it says, "Hey, look, I'm fearful for a reason." It's not like with Michael. I don't have that skill set. I don't know, but yet it ended up on his top three, right? I mean, so you may not feel 100% comfortable, like you're qualified or you have the experience necessary, yet it was intriguing enough for you to say, hey, I'll take the call or have the meeting and explore the opportunity, and for it to still be on the list of possible considerations. Because I think he's a very evolved young man. Understands that he is a quick learner, and obviously someone that is not really known to run from something he doesn't know. It sounds like he goes and jumps in and learns it. And I think at the end of the day, when you think about the possibility of going into a role in a position where you might be in with all these professionals that have done it for years and years, they have their own way of doing it. I can hear all the stories that would go off in my head, like, oh my gosh, who do I think I am? Why do I think I should be there? But part of the reason that he was probably sought out is because he brings that outsider perspective. You have something that nobody else does. That's you, right? What you bring into it, how you interpret things, how you make decisions, how you look at processes and approaches. His experience from the policy aspect has so much value in terms of how they were going to line out the rules of engagement going forward. To me, it's a natural fit. But in that moment where you're trying to make that decision, it's easy for us to default to all the reasons why we can't, which is why you're saying, you've got to face that fear head on. Dive into that. What's the worst that could happen? You do this and it doesn't work out, but you learn something. Or you do this and you learn a whole bunch of stuff and you realize, yeah, that's exactly where you should be. I think about my other business interests. I have no business owning a software company, let alone two of them. I'm insane. But I am doing things that I never wanted to or expected to do. But I love the fact that I'm doing it. I love the fact that I have not run from this thing, this big scary monster, just because I didn't go to school for it or because I had never really been at this level of depth involved in an organization like we are with this software company. but I didn't let that stop me. And now, years passed when I acquired and have now bought the company out 100%. I actually am invigorated by it. I'm, empowered by it, and it actually informs the other aspects of what I do with my other work, because I know that I have been able to push myself beyond what I thought my limits were and delivered, maybe not always 100% the best possible outcomes or results, but I've delivered my results and I feel really proud of that. So when you can get beyond that fear and you get beyond the self doubt that likes to keep you, locked in the dark room, and you realize that you are capable and you've got the ability to do this, and you face that fear head on and you dive into that deep end of the pool anyway, you'll be amazed at how much confidence you get from that and just what it does for you in all aspects of your life.
There's, the other side of the coin to the, run away from the what scares you is the human nature piece where we go to that which is most comfortable.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, I excel at this already, and I know that I could ace the interview because I do excel in this. It's a different ballgame going into an interview when you say, I've never done this before. However, this is my thinking. If you have the courage to do that. There's a second piece as well. And that second piece is look from the perspective of those who would hire or headhunt you or whatever you want to call it. What is really amazing is you have person A and person B. Person A has gone through their career, possibly moving up in level and rank and position, and cementing their knowledge in a specific field. Then you have person B who's gone and done these things that they never did before. So not only are they great, at X, but they've also brought in Y, Z, A, B, and C, and everything else. So they're much more diverse in what they could bring to the table.
Yeah.
So if there's a conversation about a situation that comes up, that expert or subject matter expert could address it from the perspective of, say, technology.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody else who's gone and done these around the edges kind of jobs could go in and say, from technology, it's a no brainer. This is, my opinion. However, keeping in mind this, and this, that might influence our choices. Who would you want to hire?
Yeah. I like that. I mean, you bring up a lot of valid points in terms of how and why you'd want to consider that, in that capacity. I think there's just so many different ways that this thing unfolds, for at least for me, right? Because I'm
Yeah,
thinking, my head is spinning in so many different ways of when I was asking you about your particular example, and you came up with Michael. Really, you got to see this, and you probably already knew how this play would play out before you suggested you submit to number three, because you know him, and he's capable of probably dealing with just about anything. Doesn't matter what situation or circumstance he finds him in. And you get that because you've been there and done that, seen him perform and excel in so many capacities. And you also come at it from your own personal confidence, right? Your own, not only your ability to see him, but also from your own experience of, well, yeah, I'm scared, but let's try it anyway. Let's do it anyway. And let's see where this takes us. And what I love about sort of the approach that you take, and we've heard you use some form of this question in the past in a prior episode, but so what? Do it anyway. What's the worst that can happen? Is you get the experience, what didn't work or what you didn't like or what really didn't resonate with you. And now you have that to build off of for something else. And, that is
yeah,
not real. It's not a failure. It's not a bad outcome, actually, right? It's just another reference point, another data point for you to figure out, okay, well, I know if that's not where I should be, or that's not what I want to be doing. Now maybe I can put my time and energy into something that I really do. But I look at this from my own life, and I think of all of those pivot points where, the fear seemed so massive and so big, but I faced it anyway. And then once I got on the other side of it, it was like, oh, that wasn't as big as I had made it out to be. It wasn't as scary or as challenging or as difficult as I thought it might be. I like to think that, and I tell my coaching clients this all the time. I play the odds. I believe in myself. I believe in what my skills and abilities are. I believe in I'll figure it out, and it may be a little rough around the edges, but I almost always come out figuring it out and in delivering the outcome. Sometimes, hopefully, most of the time, better outcomes than I could have envisioned going in. Right, and my coaching clients are the same way. They it's just that fear factor of, oh my gosh, I just don't know, I'm not sure. And that's probably life telling you, yeah, you should do it anyway. Dive in, both feet, see what happens, and uh, you know let yourself enjoy the experience of what it reveals on the other side.
So fear should influence decisions, not dictate them.
Yes.
Fear for your safety is one thing. This kind of fear, the acronym false expectations appearing real, is exactly what it is. And then you go back and you look at it and you go, what was I afraid of in the first place?
Yeah.
The whole point is it's not failure if it teaches you something. It is failure if you don't do anything differently in moving forward
That's
and just
right.
accept it as it is. So remember that as well, because the whole premise of this conversation was do it anyway, because that's where you're going to grow the most.
Yeah.
And even the fear of failure, false expectations appearing real, that you're going to fail. And we'll talk about that next week about, the premise that we live by, um, is going to dictate a good portion of what the outcome's going to be.
Yep. Yep.
So ask yourself regularly, what am I learning from this? What is really happening here? What did I learn that I didn't have a clue about before? And how is that influencing the greater picture? So keep, exploring and unpacking that onion, and
Yeah.
you'll see a part of yourself that you didn't see in any other context.
I agree. And I actually think that, that is one of the more exciting things that we get to see when we work with the clients that we have, right? Is when they actually lean into doing that work. It's scary and often intimidating, but it's just so powerful when that light bulb moment goes off and they're like, "Wow, when I look at this and think about, wow, I didn't think I could accomplish this or I couldn't, achieve that goal or objective." And they do, and then it's like, wow, it's like it fuels up their battery cell to 100% and they're ready to go take on the next challenge. It has been that way for me. I know it's been that way for you. Just the simple nature of taking this on should probably stir your belly a little bit and light the flame and watch how that has a ripple effect to other areas of your life. For me, when I just recently attended South by Southwest, a big, tech conference, interactive conference, and was in a room full of very top tier executives, a lot of tech startup, folks. And I remember going a couple of years back pre-COVID, how intimidated I was to even represent that I had a software company because I felt like a fraud and a fake. And then looking at everything that I've been able to steer and guide us through for the last 3 or 4 years, uh, I had this renewed confidence in what we're doing and why we're doing it. And so when the conversations came up, it wasn't about the technical and the tactical aspects of what we did. It was the impact we're trying to make in the world through our software, which took our conversations in so many different ways, so much more so much more engaged conversation than trying to do ego measuring like CEO tech executives tend to do. And I ultimately brought it back to like, what have you learned over the last 2 years from running your software company? What have you experienced? How did COVID impact you, and where you are you stronger because of what you learned throughout these processes? And I know that I probably would never have felt confident enough to get to that level of conversations with people that are far more experienced, far more knowledgeable than me. But I too have a role, and I too have a place amongst them. and I'm finally there. And I would not have gotten there had I not faced that big, fearful beast that I had to take on. So,
There you go.
that's my story, and I'm sticking to it on this because I just think, for me, you probably can see it. I brim with confidence now in what we do and why we do it. And just like we covered last episode, and part of that is I got out of the way. I got
Yeah.
smart people to come in and help and do the work that I was hiring them to do, and me not screw it up. So that's a big
Bingo.
factor.
Yeah.
So anyway, this I think we could carry this conversation on quite a while. I'm anxious to hear what our audience thinks about this and what kinds of responses we might get to this, because this does seem like a dialogue or an opportunity to continue the conversation offline. So how might Donna, how might they do that with us?
Join our Facebook group, Inquiring Minds with Donna Carlin and Steve Harper. That's where all our episodes are posted, and on YouTube as well. What I would like to hear from our listeners: when did you dive into something that scared the living daylights out of you, and how did it turn out? Did it surprise you? Did it come out exactly as you thought it would? And we could talk about why in another uh, combining with another episode. We'd love to hear from you, and what your personal experience has been, because I think it'd be invaluable to the rest of our readers. So join in the conversation and we will answer, because we always do.
Absolutely. Well, and be sure to check out Donna Carlin's website, donnacarlin.com, with Carlin with a K. My website is ripplecentral.com. If you have ideas or topics you'd like us to cover in a future Inquiring Minds episode, please toss those out to us as well. We'd love to hear them because we're doing this for you. We want these conversations to be powerful. We want to ask you the heavy questions as well, so that you can make a difference in your own life or in your own work. And so this is important for us to know what other topics in subjects you might like us to cover. We're happy to do that. So Donna, thanks for another great episode. I really appreciate it. We'll be back again with another episode of Inquiring Minds next week. But until then, Donna, have a great day.
You too.